Hi everyone. Once again, I sincerely welcome you to Spirituality for Dummies. Ever thought of the story of Jesus Christ is more than just a story. Like beneath all his miracles and all the moral virtue that he demonstrated, there's actually something more to all of this. Today, I want to talk about the life of Jesus Christ. Not like how most people talk and used to hear about it. Because I didn't actually grow up learning these teachings in depth. I only really started exploring his story over the past few years, and I realized that a lot of people treat it as just a story, something to listen to, and something to believe, without realizing that it is actually pointing to a path of transformation. In this video, I want to share how I began to see that for myself, because recently, after going through my own experiences, dealing with people, inner struggles, and moments where I don't really feel like doing what I had to do, I started to see his life differently, not as a story to admire from afar, but as a pattern that shows up in our everyday lives. I think one of the biggest reasons that people don't really connect with his teachings is because they treat it as something to believe rather than something to observe through their upbringing of how to interpret Jesus Christ's story. Even for me, when I first came across the teachings of Jesus, it was very easy to see them as ideas or concepts, something to agree with intellectually. And this is where the gap begins. When something is only understood at the level of thought, it stays in the mind, but it doesn't teach how we actually live. So, in many cases, his life becomes a set of events to learn about, or a figure to respect, instead of a process to recognize within ourselves. You often see people repeating prayers, attending services, or following traditions. And again, there's nothing wrong about that. These practices can be meaningful, but when they are done without reflection, they slowly become mechanical. Words are repeated, but not really felt. Teachings are heard, but not really seen. And over time, something that was meant to be alive becomes something that feels distant and fixed in the past. Because when we treat it as something external, we unknowingly place it outside of our own experience. It becomes something that happened to someone else, in another time, under special circumstances. And when that happens, we stop looking for it in our own lives. We stop noticing how the same patterns, fear, resistance, surrender, forgiveness, are actually happening within us every day. So instead of transformation, it remains information, and information alone doesn't change how we react when things get difficult. But recently, something started to change for me. It wasn't because I studied more or understood more intellectually, yeah, although that helps as well. It was because I went through situations that forced me to see my own reactions clearly. There were moments where people were upset, situations that felt uncomfortable, and even times where I really didn't like doing what needed to be done. And in these moments, I began to notice something. The struggle wasn't just outside, it was inside. I could see how my mind reacts, how it resists, how it wants to avoid discomfort or hold on to control. And at the same time, there was also a quiet awareness observing all of this. That was when something clicked. I started to realize that the teachings that I heard before were not abstract ideas. They were describing something very real, something happening within my own experiences. And when I look back at the life of Jesus Christ from this perspective, it started to look completely different. The events were no longer just historical moments, they began to feel like reflections of an inner process, a pattern of transformation that can happen within any person. And that was when the story stopped being something external and started becoming something that I could actually relate to. When I started looking at his life through this lens, certain moments suddenly become much more alive. Take Gethsemane, for example. Jesus Christ went to the garden and said, Father, is there any other way? That's the most human thing I've ever heard from Jesus Christ. That line shown that Jesus also struggled with resistance, fear, and honest struggle. But then he added, Not my will, but yours. That's surrender. But it isn't skipping the struggle. He felt the weight fully before choosing to move with it. And I realized that's exactly how transformations feels like. Acknowledging what's hard, feeling it fully, and still taking the step forward despite of that. Another moment that strikes me the most is Jesus walking on water. Peter stepped out on the boat and started to sink, but when he trusted, he walked. These moments show how action, even in uncertainty, is a part of a transformation. It isn't being about perfect or fearless. It's about trust and alignment with what is deeper than fear or doubt. Because fear or doubt often are signals pointing to the direction that we need to work on ourselves. Forgiveness is another key lesson in Jesus Christ's life. You know how Jesus talked about forgiving others and love even your enemies that persecute you, right? Basically, Jesus is like the spokesman of the word forgiveness, right? When we forgive ourselves and others, we release the weight that keeps us stuck in the past. It's like the saying, unforgiveness is drinking poison but wishing the other person dies. It is, of course, not about condoning mistakes, not at all. But it is about freeing our spirit to move forward and transform. And peace, that kind that comes from living in alignment and truth, isn't just about quiet surroundings. It starts within. Chaos will always happen outside, but the inner calm allows us to respond without being pulled into it. When I looked at these moments in his life, alongside with my own experiences, the confrontations, the anxiety, and the things that I didn't feel like doing, I realized that the story wasn't something from history. It was a mirror, a pattern of transformation that could happen in real life today for everyone willing to look at it. And when I start looking at his life in this lens, that is all started to click for me. The life of Jesus Christ isn't just a story to admire from afar or something to believe in. It's a guide showing what transformation actually looks like in small human moments. In the choices we make every day, every struggle, every act of surrender, every step taken despite of fear, and every moment of forgiveness is a part of a path that anyone can follow. In fact, the process of his life is like a map of consciousness. Each moment, each challenge, each act he took points to a shift of awareness, a step deeper into alignment with spirit. And the truth is, we can only be truly resurrected in the spirit when we follow through the path he once walked. When we engage with the process ourselves, rather than just observing it from afar. Once we follow this sequence of transformation, resurrection is not just a story anymore. Resurrection becomes real. It is the renewal of your spirit. The moment your inner life is awakened and aligned with the divine flow. Because Jesus' story is not only about a person in an ancient world who performs signs and miracles. It is about you. It is about what truly awakened beings can look like. Don't believe me? He even said it himself in the Bible. John 14, verse 12. He said, Truly, truly, I say to you, Whoever believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works than these will he do. Notice he used the word greater works. The whole thing is about you and what you can achieve. It is about the same path of transformation, being possible for anyone willing to engage with it, and even maybe do better than him, according to his words. His life is a mirror showing what is possible within your own consciousness. The point here isn't to become perfect or to have a flawless life at all. It is about noticing the patterns inside yourself, about seeing where fear, resistance, or ego might hold you back, definitely, and choosing to move in alignment with something greater. That's what I realized, that these teachings are alive, they are present, and they are happening all around us if we are willing to pay attention. So if you have ever felt distant from these stories, if you have ever thought they were just history or mythology, I want to encourage you to look again. Watch your own life carefully. Notice the moments of struggle, fear, resistance, and even some positive traits like trust. See them as invitations to transformation. Because the story is far from over, it is not something that exists only in the past. It is a living pattern, and it can show up in your life today, just as it's showing up in mine. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to take a moment and reflect. Which part of Jesus' path can you relate to in your own life today? Where you can notice struggle, surrender, or forgiveness showing up. If you do feel called, try slowing down and observing your own moments, even the small ones, as part of your own journey of transformation. Share your thoughts in the comments because I'd love to hear your reflections. And if you want to continue exploring these teachings and how they can transform your life, hit that subscribe button and maybe turn on notifications. Together, we can uncover how these timeless lessons aren't just stories from the past. They are alive, here, and right now, waiting for us to engage. The flame is spreading within us. Till next time, bye bye.